All right. Somebody's there. Drop a comment down below. Let me know you're here. And let me know if you can hear me or not. I've learned that with this computer, I can't always be sure you can hear me. All right. Let me see. Maybe I can get some feedback. There's two of you. Right on. Can you guys hear me? Just want to make sure you can hear me. Drop a comment down below. Let me know if you can hear me or not. No, I don't want that. Still not. Joe Main. Hello, Joe. How you doing? Can you hear me? Can you hear me now? Yes. All right. Okay. you know, it's always for some reason a challenge. So right on. Joe, how you doing, buddy? We milled up some sycamore this weekend and some maple, and that maple was so hard, but Kevin, who came down to do some milling for me, was running 4-degree bands, and they were just doing awesome. But we were talking about using 7s and 4s, and the debate is still on. But he agreed that 10s would not have cut it. So, but right on, doing good, Joe. Well, okay, I'm doing good, but I had to have someone else do some milling for me this weekend because I'm doing good, but my back ain't. So, but all right, we got John Davidson. I don't know why I always wanted to call you something else, John. So David something or other. John. I'm terrible with names, so I'm gonna get it right from now on. But yeah, and how about that multi-panel? I don't know what we want to call that. Somebody called it a Sawyer's. What did they call it? The Sawyer's panel or something like that, and they really liked it. And maybe you're watching here tonight already, because I don't know who's watching, so be sure to drop a comment down below, say hi, let me know you're here. And I'm not getting started. Well, I don't know what getting started is anyway, but I'm just yakking while I'm waiting to see who shows up, and y'all say hi down below. But that panel was awesome, and Joe, if you hadn't seen it, I worked it out with Two Brothers Outdoors to do a panel with John from Davidson's All Natural Gym, Mike from Wilson's Forest Lands, Ben Bradley from Dusty Ranch, and I'm sure there was somebody else there. If there was, John, remind me who it was, because the old brain's not working today. But it was really awesome. We had a bunch of us all together on a live answering questions. It was a lot of fun too. So we will do that again, by the way. I actually got Rick over at Two Brothers sent me a link to the software, actually for the second time. So thank you, Rick. He sent it to me probably 2 or 3 months ago, and we talked about doing a live together, and then he ran one, and it worked really well. And I keep saying, yeah, I need to do that too. So I suspect that we will do some of those, maybe not every month, but maybe every 1 or 2 months at the very least. I think you'll see some of that. So be sure to pay attention to my channel, John's channel, Rick and Tim's channel, Mike's channel, Ben's, you name it. There's some others out there I'd love to get on there. Steve over at Making Sawdust, and Dave at the Old Man and the Mill, or the Old Man and the Saw. We talked about doing it a year and a half or more ago, and I still want to do that. So if you're watching, guys, we got to do that. We still do, and there's some others. So right on. Oh, hey, there we are, Rick and Tim. Nice to see you guys. Cheers. I got my it's bourbon 30 mug tonight. Oh yeah, there you go. that's medicinal, folks. All right on. Hey, Dean, how are you, buddy? Thanks for joining us. And I think we're going to get started here. let's see, what time is it? It's only 5:31. We'll wait a little bit and just yak a little bit. And for those wondering tonight, if you haven't seen one of these before, what I do usually is I try to give a channel update, tell you what's going on, maybe give you a few things that are happening, going to happen, whatever, and then Q&A. And when I do a Q&A, it's open, wide open. Want to talk about something? All you got to do is drop it down below in the comments. I'm going to answer questions. So if it's sawmilling, of course, we're going to answer them. Woodworking, cabin stuff. Hey, maybe Jeep stuff. I don't know. And as well as YouTube. So, and by the way, while we're waiting, see if we get a few more folks on or not. And hey, there's Mike right there. Good to see you, Mike. And I'll answer that question shortly. But I want to thank all of you all for being here and for subscribing to my channel. So really crazy. If you hadn't noticed, I popped up over 10K yesterday, I think it was. I'm losing track of days. It might have been Friday. I think it was Friday, popped over 10,000. So if I drank that much bourbon, I'd be on the floor. I don't drink that much bourbon. But this is not all bourbon, guys. Come on. I'll tell you about that in a minute. But anyway, so thank you. I honestly, I never thought I would hit 10,000 now, or, I was kind of hoping maybe sometime this year, figured by the end of the year sometime. So I appreciate that. I do really a lot. So anyway, all right, first question of the day while we're waiting for channel updates and seeing who's going to show up tonight. What bourbon am I drinking tonight? I'm slumming tonight, guys. Well, not totally, but Evan Williams. So I'm, hey, if you're interested, I'll tell you about it. I like bourbon. I've been drinking bourbon a long time. I like bourbon. I only drink one or two a night, but a couple things. One, unless it's really good bourbon, I have learned to mix it with Coke so that I don't drink that much. So you see, there's a trick to it. You put the bourbon in here depending on how much of a day it is. And Rick, one of these days I'm going to do a glass. So Rick told me when I made this glass, it's it's bourbon 30 with the old Jarhead on there. He told me what I should have done is I should have put a line in the middle right here, and then good day, bad day sort of thing. Well, it's a pretty reasonable day, but you put some ice in, you put a little bourbon, you put some Coke on top, and it's a cardinal sin in the bourbon drinking world to do that. But it also keeps me from drinking more than one or two. So because I happen to like it. But and I have some Yellowstone, really good stuff. If you're a bourbon drinker and you haven't tried Yellowstone, I was really impressed. Good stuff. And I've got some Four Roses small batch that I think I've got a couple bottles of that. And I like Four Roses. Old Forester's usually my go-to favorite, but Four Roses is also one of them. So anyway, there you go. And Mountain Dew is the only soda made specifically to mix with bourbon. Really? I want to see a link right there, buddy. And hey, Craig, nice to see you, buddy. And thank you very much for that. I appreciate it. You're part of that. So I appreciate that. But Mountain Dew, huh? I've never tried that. I should tell you this, and what the heck, right? We're only 4 minutes in, so we've got plenty of time. But I was born in Oregon, but I was raised up in British Columbia. So if you ever hear me say things that sounds a little more like an out and about or beauty, eh? Or process or progress. Sometimes you might hear me say that. So if you hear kind of an accent once in a while, I spent over 20 years in Canada, and I grew up as a young man, starting to drink at 19. Never drank earlier than that, right? But Canadians drink rye, and Crown Royal and all that, Seagram 7. So I started drinking rye, and when I moved back down to the States, when I joined the Marine Corps, and I would go into a pub, bar, right, tavern, I would ask for, can I get a 7 and 7 or a rye and 7 or a rye and Coke? They wouldn't know what the heck I was talking about. So one day I said, one of my buddies said, just get a Jack and Coke. And I was like, all right, fine, I'll do that. And that was my introduction to sour mash. Technically, Jack is actually a bourbon. They just call it Tennessee whiskey, whatever. But and that kind of changed things for me. So anyway, probably don't care about that. Andy Smith, hey, nice to see you there, buddy. I've been enjoying the Redemption High Rye. I have to say, rye are smoother and they don't have the bourbon bite. There's lots of great ryes out there. I got to the point where I just don't drink ryes anymore. I just drink bourbon. So there you go. Not that I would turn some down if someone offered me a good rye, or just like scotch, what the heck, right? So, all right, Mountain Dew goes with Shine. Oh, that's from the Adirondacks, of course, right? But all right, so let me get started. So thanks everybody for being here. Those who either are watching this later, thank you, appreciate it. And again, thank you guys for pushing me over 10,000 subscribers. Totally awesome, really crazy. I have a hard time believing it sometimes, but so thank you for that. But let me do some channel updates. So first of all, I'm not quitting milling. So don't anybody think that in some videos that will be coming and some pictures you may have seen on social media and some shorts or Instagram reels that you may have seen does not mean I'm not milling. And no, I did not buy a second sawmill. So if you saw a picture, and they're out there, if you go look, of 2 sawmills parked in my driveway, well, one of those wasn't mine. But I thought it would be fun to kind of mess around a little bit with post a couple pictures, and make people wonder what's going on. So what is going on? If you've watched my channel for a while, you've heard me mention my back before. In fact, about a year or so ago, I had a band wheel bearing go. I know some of you probably have seen that video. I know I've talked to some of you about it, at least in the comments. And in my band wheel bearing, getting it fixed was delayed because my back was out, and I finally got it done. Well, at that time, a sawyer that I know from the infamous forestry forum, which you guys hear me talk about a lot, Kevin Bales out of Coeur d'Alene area, actually I think Plummer, Idaho, goes by Crossroads on forestry forum. You guys, if you're on Facebook and you're in the different groups like the Wood Miners or Owners Group or the Band Sawmill Group or whatever, you've probably seen posts by Kevin. He's milled over 1 million board feet. Great guy. But anyway, over a year ago, he offered to come down and replace that bearing for me when I couldn't do it myself. I ended up getting it done, so he didn't have to come down, but it was awesome that he did that, and just offered to do it, right? But anyway, so recently I started having some trouble again, and I've had it for a while. I have a few different issues: stenosis, herniated disc, and some facet pain. And the VA is a little slow to get things done, if you know what I mean. And unfortunately, when it was supposed to be done last year, things didn't get done. And the company that I've been going through, the spine doctors changed names or whatever. And of course, with the VA, that means you're SOL for like several months. And anyway, so and the disc got a little bit better. And so last year I was able to mill a whole bunch. It was painful. And by the end of, the Sawdust Roadshow last summer, I was walking bent over quite a bit. You probably didn't see it in the videos, but the truth of the matter was I wasn't doing great. I was still walking, but barely. And, and I took some time off and whatnot. And of course, this winter it was kind of touch and go. But this spring, it reared its ugly head again. And when I left the cabin, so if you've seen my last 3 videos, those are all done up at the cabin. If you haven't, maybe I'll drop them down below in the description or something, or you can just go to the channel and check them out. But you may, in one of them, I'm talking to the camera, the first one, the breakfast video. If you've seen that one, you'll know what I'm talking about. You may have noticed that I was kind of talking a little breathlessly a little bit, and you may see me stumble once in a while in those videos. So if you kind of saw something there that you thought what was going on, well, the truth of the matter was it was getting tough to walk. And I had these customers that I had been working with. One was a new customer that really needed someone to come out before Memorial Weekend and get some logs done. And then the other customer you've seen, probably if you've seen my videos, was the customer where I corded up an old maple. And I did that with my chainsaw. The chainsaw fails, one where the chainsaw falls over and the chain comes off. I actually bent the bar in that one. But anyway, so that log was sitting there corded up, ready to go. And of course, I had all those hydraulic problems that I had to get fixed. I got the hydraulic issues sorted out. Everything was good to go. Got up to the cabin, and by the time I left the cabin, I could barely walk. And I'm also having some trouble with the mill again. Now, the problem with the mill is most likely a very simple issue. Do a tune-up, swap the plugs out, make sure everything's cleaned out, replace the air filters. Probably going to run fine. It's just running rich, and I past life I was a mechanic, and the truth of the matter is, if something's running rich, that just means you're not getting enough air or you're not getting enough spark. I mean, really, you could be flooded, but it's an injection motor, so pretty unlikely you're getting too much fuel. You're probably just not getting enough air. So it's something that should be relatively easy to fix. The problem is that when I got back from the cabin, I could barely walk, and so I couldn't go out to the mill and actually work on the mill. So now I have had a procedure done, so I'm able to walk again. Life is good, but I'm also understand that it could take 2 or 3 weeks before things heal up to an improved level, and then I still have some things that are going to need to be done. So long story short, I needed some help. So I put out a call. Some of you, I'm sure, saw that on Facebook. I also did it on Forestry Forum. And as soon as I put that call out, Kevin reached out and said, "What do you got? What do you need help with?" And he offered to come down and do the jobs for me. So it works out really well because I'm going to bring that to you, and I think you're going to enjoy it. Of course, I got a lot of work to do to take, the 5 different cameras I was using, because when I'm not milling, I get to be the cameraman. And you know what? I have 5 different angles that I was running while Kevin was doing the work. And his mill is a year newer than mine. It's a 17, mine's a 16, and his is the wide version. So otherwise, our mills are the same. Both have the 26.5 horse Kohler motors, both LT40s. The only difference is his is a wide and it has board return. That's it. No other differences. And there's one other difference, though. His has 2,200 hours or 2,135 or something like that. So he's put a lot of miles on that mill. And so you'll get to see Kevin running his mill, and I of course will comment about it and talk a bit about what's going on. But I think you're really going to enjoy that, because you're going to get to see somebody who's milled over 1 million board feet of lumber, and he's been milling about the same amount of time I have. I think we started around a similar time. I think I started making my first lumber in 2010 with a chainsaw, and then early 2011 with the bandsaw. And he started around that same time. I want to say he got an LT30 in 2014, but he was using a mobile dimension or something before that. And but anyway, the difference is that in 2021 he went full time, 5 days a week, 6 days a week, every day, out banging away, milling like crazy. So you get to see a little bit of differences, I think, in how he does things, though it's very similar to the way I mill. You'll get to see that. So I think that's going to be great. I think it's going to be fun. And 2 different jobs, sycamore being one of them. So you're going to get to see that. And then some spalted maple, which is something I never get to do hardly ever. And we got it done. So that's awesome. And thank you, Kevin, if you're happy to be watching this. I've thanked him a few times. Trust me, it's awesome. Now, one of you who may be watching right now should be doing another job for me. So I have another customer here locally who needs to get a couple logs milled up. They're not terribly big logs, and it's going to be a simple job, like a slabbing job. So because I had reached out, another individual that I know, actually a subscriber, Skookum Sawmill, reached out to me and said, "What do you got? What do you need?" And so I've still got to work out some details with him, and he should be able to do that. And he's got an LT35, so I'll bring you that. And that leads me to something I've been wanting to do that I hope you're going to enjoy when I do it. And that is, there's another gentleman in the area who is another Marine who has an LT15. And he runs that LT15 like crazy. It goes out, sources logs, makes a ton of lumber. And he and I've talked a few times over the last couple of years. And I want to go out and film his operation and bring that to you as well. So that's some of the stuff that's going to be going on. So you're going to get to see a few different things in the future on the channel, which of course helps if I'm not walking real great and it's going to be tough for me to run the mill. But I do have a job I am going to be doing soon. It's for a wood carver, an old friend of the family who built an awesome actual Viking longboat the way the Vikings did it, as far as we know. He built it by hand with hand tools. So it's an amazing boat that he built. He built it over 20 years ago. And so I'll get to show you that and some other stuff. And on that job, I'm going to run the mill, but my wife's going to be there to make sure that I don't do anything else but run the mill. So no rolling logs, no carrying lumber beams for me right now. However, I will also get up to the cabin. There will be some more cabin milling videos where, at least at the cabin, I've got the tractor with the forks, with the grapple, and I can pretty much do everything with heavy equipment up there versus going out on a remote road show and trying to help customers out on the road where I may not be able to do that right now. So lots and lots coming in the future. And for those that maybe have also been, over on my Jeep channel that isn't very active right now. So if you are, sorry about that. I put all my effort into this channel, but I am taking next weekend and we're going to do some wheeling. And I'm going to bring the cameras and I'm going to try to get some decent video. Unlike the last time, sometimes when I go wheeling, it's kind of tough because we put a camera on the hood or something and that's all I've got. But this time I think I'm going to try to actually get some decent footage. So I think that'll be fun. Change of pace, something fun to do. Let's see. What else have I got coming? I've got some battery talk on the cabin side. So if you're into the cabin, the off-grid stuff, we got new batteries in the cabin, and I hope to show you that pretty soon. That was a big change for us. So that was awesome. And then I've also got something else, something I'm going to be putting on the Sawmill, something you may want to consider. And it's going to provide a great deal of protection on the Sawmill. For those that have paid attention to some of my maintenance videos in the past, I lost a control panel. I actually think it's because of lightning that was nearby when the cabin or when the mill was up at the cabin. So I'm going to be putting something on the mill that will provide that protection and more. And I think you might find it interesting. So that's coming. I'm not going to tell you what it is yet, though. So you got to stick around. You got to watch. So anyway, there you go. Tons going on. I've got at least one more cabin video that should come out next week, which, of course, you may have noticed the shift to Saturday. You could drop in the comments below or down in the chat here or on the channel or whatever. I decided to move to Saturday, partly because it's easier for me, just because I'm working Monday through Thursday for a couple more months yet. And so it's tough to get a video out on Friday mornings. And I decided, you know what, I'm going to switch it to Saturday. Way easier to do. I can kick one out at 6 a.m. or something like that Eastern time on a Saturday morning and just, have all of Friday to make sure that video is ready for you. So if you haven't seen this week's video, it dropped on Saturday rather than Friday, but there is a new video. So if you haven't seen it, it's out there. But that's why that's going on. Okay, you hate to go, Rick. That's okay, buddy. Hey, thanks for being here. Appreciate it. Watch you later. Right on. Okay, so there you go. Channel updates done. Channel life, everything else updates done. So what do we got? Let's throw some questions out there, and we'll go from there. And while I'm waiting on questions, I might tell you a little story. I get a chuckle out of this. So while I'm waiting for questions, I will tell you that there's a video out there that didn't get much play, but I had a little bit of fun with, and it's actually a true story. And you may have seen the thumbnail for it, and it said "Bear by my head." So if you haven't seen that, go look for it. That is actually a true story. And I may have mentioned this on a live before, but it is actually a true story. But I have more. And I thought I might share one with you tonight while waiting for some questions. So if you don't want to hear the bear stories, you're going to have to put some questions down here real quick. So now, if you don't know, I mentioned earlier that I grew up in BC. Can you get one of those ride-along seats for your mill? Look at that. See, don't want to hear. So we know that Andy, he doesn't want to hear the bear stories, right? That's why he got the question out right away. Yes, as a matter of fact, I can get a seat to ride along with the mill. It is most likely the option I will go to in the future. But I'll be honest with you, I need to walk. Walking is good for me. So I really don't want to do that unless I absolutely have to. If I do, then I'll go that route. If I don't decide to upgrade to a command control, I doubt that I'll upgrade to command control. It's just too expensive, right? Let's be honest, guys. I mean, mills are outrageous these days. So, do I want to spend, I mean, a new mill, I'd probably be looking at 60 grand or something. I mean, supposedly I can order them from Woodmiser and get them sometime between now and, when the sun goes out. But so a seat is absolutely an option. And I know at least one sawyer who's milled over 2 million board feet that rides a seat every time he mills. So no reason why I couldn't do that. It might be hard for me to learn. Only it's just kind of I think it'd be easier for me to adjust to a command versus to a seat. So, Dean, hey, thanks, buddy. How does one send you a super sticker? Can you explain? I have no idea. And then you send me one. So I'll answer that, Dean. Thank you very much for that, by the way. It really does help the channel out, so I appreciate that. Super stickers are they're like super thanks as well. And usually, now I'll be honest, because I'm on this end of a live, so it's harder for me to see, Dean. But down below videos, there's usually always like a dollar sign or a super thanks on there. And in the chat, there's also one. But I've actually never done it myself. So full honesty here. I didn't used to watch lives, to tell you the truth. I think I've only watched one. So, Tim, oh, so hang on, guys. I'll catch up. So anyway, Dean was asking about it. So again, thank you, Dean, so much. It is greatly appreciated. It really does help. Makes it worthwhile doing these. And folks, you should be able to see those either in the chat at the bottom. I'm sure I've seen it there before on premieres when I've done them, or down below, just below the video itself. So, and they do really help. Nicola Myers, he has sent several super thanks on my videos. And honestly, folks, I mean, sometimes it's like just $2 or $3. You know what? That's awesome. I really appreciate that, especially because a brand new video can go out. I could get 1,000 views on a new video and maybe make like $3 or $4. And so and I'm not in this business to make money, but it does help, especially when you're running 5 cameras. But so anyway, all right. So Andy, did you see the old man rigged his mill up to control panel swing out away from them? Did you see the old man rigged his mill up so the control panel swings out away from the mill? No, I did not, but you could do that. I could easily see doing that. Because it's just a bolt-on setup, and it's cabled, so there's no reason you couldn't do that. I don't see that it would help in my situation, so I'm not sure the value of that. I would go to command control or to the seat. Tim, have you been able to use your laser yet? Oh, so Tim must have put a laser on his LT15. And for those interested, I will be doing the video on the laser. So if you watched a video, the last video, actually, I point out, you get to see a little bit of the laser in that video. The problem I had was the sun was directly on the log, and it washed out the laser completely. I couldn't see it at all. I couldn't even see it at the entrance to the log. Now, that may be that I could just tilt it a little bit and maybe point it more towards the log, and that might help. But at the time, I just went, it's too bright. I'll mess with it later. So I haven't had a chance. But if Andy, you're under a cover, it's my understanding if you're under cover, it works better. And I know Craig, the Kilted Sawyer, he does that as well. Crank up the wattage. Yeah, go to a 2,000 milliwatt laser. Absolutely. All right. So questions? Throw them out there. Otherwise, I'm going to talk about bear stories, because I have actually a pretty funny one that you guys might enjoy. It involves me being about 12, a girl who was, I think, 13, 2 other young men who were obviously not being very well behaved, and a bear. So, all right. Well, I'll tell you that story while I wait for questions. And by the way, if you're new, questions, throw them out there. I answer whatever questions you bring. Doesn't matter. So if you got a question, I'll answer it. Doesn't matter. It could be about that truck right there. I'll answer that one. But so anyway, back to the bears first. So I grew up, I mentioned earlier, I grew up in British Columbia, but you have to understand, growing up in British Columbia, I grew up in remote places. When we first moved there, we moved to Vanderhoof, British Columbia, which is like the center of BC, in the middle of the woods where the mosquitoes are the size of F-16s. And, there's bears and cougars, and there's big bears and little bears. I mean, it's just insane. It's wildlife country. Your neighbors are half a mile away, unless it's the bear in the den up the road, right? And so I grew up in places like that for, from the time I was 2 when we moved. Let's see, we moved up there. I was about a little over 2 years old, and I moved back the last time, the second to last time when I was 20. And then the final time I moved back when I was 20. Oh, I'm guessing 29. I think it was 29. So anyway, I lived in this town called Ocean Falls, and we used to joke that the population of Ocean Falls was 999 people and 1,000 bears. And believe it or not, there really were that many bears. It was insane. And and there's no roads to Ocean Falls. You can look it up. If you look up, Ocean Falls, BC, you'll find it. And they used to call us the rain people. Those are the people that live there. But and so we lived in this town, tons of bears everywhere. You get used to them, right? If the bears are walking down the road, you just give them a little extra room and let them walk ahead of you, right? It's that simple. Well, as a enterprising 12-year-old, I decided that it would be fun to scare this girl. Her name was Danette Roos, and I was going to scare this girl, and because I thought that was a good way to get her attention, right? I mean, isn't that the way all 12-year-olds think? You're going to scare some girl. And in this part of town, there was a road down by the water, down by the chuck, we called it, which was the ocean. And then another road was a dirt road that came down off of a hillside into that 1 mile of paved road. We only had 1 mile of paved road there. And we thought that if we sat up on that upper road in the bushes and moved the bushes around, that we could scare her into thinking there was a bear, and it would be funny. We thought it'd be funny anyway, 12 years old, right? So when tightening my blade, it seems like I am, keep typing. We'll get there because I didn't see any other questions. So keep going, Dean. We'll get to it. But so I'm sitting here on the side of the road, and I'm with 2 buddies, Cooper and Dennis. and I think one was on either side of me. And we're all sitting in the bushes right on the edge of this little dirt track, a little gravel dirt track. And we're trying to be quiet now. Okay, be quiet, right? Because she's going to show up, and we want to be able to scare her, because that's how 12-year-olds get the attention of 13-year-old girls, right? I mean, does it work? I don't know. So we're all sitting there trying to be quiet, and I heard some rocks moving. And so I looked over at Cooper beside me, and I said, Cooper, be quiet, right? There's she's coming. We don't want her to know we're here. And he said, well, I'm not doing anything. And so I looked over at Dennis. I said, Dennis, knock it off. And he said, I'm not doing anything. So we're kind of going back and forth, and these rocks are still moving around. Finally, at some point, I'm thinking, who's behind us? And I turn around and look. Now, you have to understand, this little dirt track is only like 8 feet wide. It's like a 1-lane dirt road. So I turn around and I look behind me, and there's a bear sitting there on that side of the road, literally just sitting on the side of the road right behind us, as if he's like looking at us going, what the hell are these stupid idiots doing right now, hiding in the bushes, right? Or maybe he was wondering if we were eating his berries or something. I don't know. So needless to say, we all started running down the road. The only problem was the bear decided to run with us. Now, maybe, I don't know. I still think to this day, he probably thought, what are those idiots doing? I should find out, right? Go with them, see what they're all afraid of. So, God's honest truth. If you saw that video out there, bear by my head, that's a different story, but it is actually a true story. All right. Dean, when tightening my blade, it seems like I am, here we go. When tightening my blade, it seems like I'm getting to the end and can't tighten any further. So on the blade itself, when you're tightening up the pressure on it, trying to get up to 3,000 pounds, because I think you're running an LT50, right? If I remember correctly, I think you're running an LT50. which I don't think has the crank. So help me understand. I got to remember what mill you're running. Um, the screw is getting to the end. Oh, LT40. Okay, so if you're tightening up on an LT40 and you think you're getting to the end and you're not at 3,000 pounds, keep going. I do remember years ago kind of having that same thing where I'm thinking there's no way I can keep tightening it up. And then I found out I can. If that's not the case, right? If you really truly are getting to the end of the throw, then I would back it off. And if you don't have the book, you need the book, I think, because it probably needs some ATF added to it. It uses ATF like a hydraulic fluid, and you probably need to top that off. And I want to say it's on the inside of the cover. There's a screw in there, but it could be different, and I'm going by memory right now. But I think you need to top that off if that's the case. So you can't go any further. Yes. So if you're trying to tighten up the band tension and you can't get it up to 3,000 plus pounds without bottoming out the crank, then you're dry. You need to back that off, open it up, and fill that with some fluid. And there are instructions in the manual. If you don't have the manual, two things. One, you could reach out to your Wood-Mizer rep. They're really good about getting that to you. But if they're not helping you out, email me. You should be able to find my email. In fact, I think if you look on my about page, it's Sawyer@manlyportablemilling.com. And it's in my about page. So, or you could find me on Facebook or MeWe or Instagram. And I will find that page in the book and get a copy of it and send it your way. So it's not that difficult to do. It's just kind of a little procedure. You back it off, open it up, put the fluid in, close it back up again, kind of thing. So pretty straightforward, but helps to see how it's done, I think, with a PDF, you print it out or something like that. So that would really help. And by the way, guys, if you didn't know this, I will send things to you if I can, if I've got them. I had a guy on Facebook recently reach out to me and he said, hey, I watched your video on the control panel. I think I have the same problem. Any chance you could send me that paper that you had when you worked on it that I see in the video? Could you send that to me so I could do the same test? And I was able to do that. And I will. So if you have something like that, you need a copy of a page or two or something, I'm happy to do that and send it to you. Now, Jerry over at Skookum Sawmill knows two things. One, it may end up in your junk mail folder, so you got to check there too. Or two, it could take me a couple, 2-3 days to get it to you, only because of work and all that kind of stuff. So, but I would absolutely do that, Dean, especially for you. So I believe you're undoubtedly dry, low on fluid, and it needs to get pumped up. That would be my assessment on that one right there. So, but all right, how many blades do I take on a job, and how do you decide? John, I take a lot of bands, so it depends on the job. I generally do not go on a remote milling job with less than 15 bands. 15 is the minimum for me. My box that I made, I have a wooden box. So if you look at that wood box, you see sometimes in my videos, or more likely in the What I Bring video, that easily will hold 15 bands. It holds 2 drive belts, B57s, and it holds a band gauge. And I will load that up. The only time I might not load it up with 15 is if I'm literally going to only go do 1 or 2 logs. But I generally don't go mill 1 or 2 logs. That's not the only time I would do 1 or 2 logs is if I'm doing it for a video to bring to you. That's it. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense to go mill 1 or 2 logs. Excuse me, but occasionally I will, and then I might only bring 6 or 8 bands with me, and it seems crazy, right? I mean, a band should last you at least 2 hours, right? Wood-Mizer says 2 hours change the band. That's 2 hours at production, and if you're only going to mill 200 board feet of lumber on 1 log, why do you need to take more than 1 band? Well, I've hit 7 nails in 1 log before. There's 7 bands gone. So I generally always take 15. Now, if I'm going to go on a big job, so if I'm going to go out and I'm going to do, 2-3 days at this location, 2-3 days at that location, maybe 2 or 3 days at a third location, which I've done occasionally, rarely, but occasionally, then I will take usually about 45 bands. I have actually ran down to my last band on a job before. That's when I was only taking 15. And that was like 2 days. And it wasn't that I was running into nails. It wasn't that I was ruining bands. It was that I was running 500 board feet an hour, and I was changing bands every hour. The logs were dry, so they were heating up the bands, and the bands were getting dull fast. But I could run about 500 board feet on a band at the time anyway, and I mean every log was 500 plus board feet. And when you're milling big logs, 18 and a half feet long, 24 plus inches in diameter, over and over and over every hour, you're cranking out the bands. And I literally got down to my last band, and it was the end of that weekend. I did multiple weekends on that job, but that was also the last time I ever took 15 bands only with me on the job. So I have about, oh gosh, I think I've got 85 bands. So taking, 30, 45 bands, not that big a deal. Usually I'll have, when it's busy milling season, I'll have 15 bands on the way to Wood-Mizer, probably 15 bands at Wood-Mizer and 15 coming back. That's not uncommon. And, so in those cases, if I only have 30, I'm only taking 30, but usually I still have about 40 bands available and I can take those. So, and Joe Main is here. By the way, I saw Joe joined us. He should still be here. If you guys don't know, I get my bands from Joe Main now. Joe's awesome. He's been around the industry a while. He provides, they just provide awesome service. So if you don't know, I know Kilted Sawyer uses him. A lot of top guys use him. He also sells Wood-Mizer bands. So, that's a straight up personal link you can get. If you didn't know that already, that's something that you can do. So, all right, what other questions we got here? That's all. I told you my bear story for the night. So, let's get some questions going. What do you guys want to know? 5 cameras, really? I mean, that's a question I think I'd be asking. Are you crazy? Probably crazy. I had fun showing Kevin some of my editing though. And because he's often thought about doing YouTube, and he has a YouTube channel, but he does mostly just shorts because he didn't have time. And so I was showing him software that I was using, which is DaVinci Resolve, thanks to Steve over at MSD Making Sawdust. And I think it blew him away. I had 4 video streams, all that I put together. And if you watched my last video, you may have noticed that there were multiple video angles and streams running in that video. And if you haven't, hey, go check it out after this, as I think you'll enjoy it. And that is one of the things that I do try to do for you guys is I like to try and get, as much as I can in terms of video angles, shots, just all of it, not just 1 or 2, right? I'm all about trying to get, if I could get more, I would, but I think the max is in that 4 to 5 range. And this next series of videos after next week, you should see some of those where I have 5 cameras running. And so I think it's going to be awesome. It's going to take some work to get them out to you though, but I think you're going to enjoy it. I think it's going to be awesome. And then of course, Kevin Millen, I think Kevin's faster than I am. It's close, but I do think he's a little faster than I am. So that might be fun too. Got to go. Appreciate your help. Hey, Dean, thank you. Let me know if you need a copy of that. If I need to go grab my book and photocopy that for you, just let me know. But, hopefully you can take a look at it. If you've already got the books, go check it out. I think that's what you need to do, is just fill up that reservoir that's in that thing. I haven't seen one go dry, but I do know that it can happen. So I would absolutely start there, because you shouldn't be able to crank that all the way in. So again, thanks for the super sticker too. I really appreciate it. All right, what other questions we got, guys? We got plenty of time here. So I see 10 of you out there. I've heard from most of you, I think. Andy and his rye. Hopefully he's drinking some rye tonight. Redemption. I've heard about Redemption rye. I just haven't tried that one yet. And then, of course, Andy, you're still there. What's going on in Andy's world? and John. I mean, questions. So, and Desert Hobo was on that multiple Sawyer panel. I know he was there. And you guys, if you want to see more of that, be sure to drop it in the comments of not just my channel, but Mike's channel, Rick and Tim, Andy's channel, John's channel. Let folks know. I actually had a lot of fun, and I think what I really want to do, and I think you guys might enjoy it, is put together a panel of 5 or 6 Sawyers again, but have no subject. Just ask questions, and we'll BS while we're waiting for you to ask the questions. I think that'd be fun. So, um, John, you mentioned, and then I lose you. So you must have started typing and didn't finish the question. So throw it out there, buddy. Let me hear what you got. Um, and then let's see, Andy, are you still out there, or is it getting late in your neck of the woods? There was something I was going to ask you guys. I know we had talked about trying to get you on that panel as well, by the way. I don't know if Rick told you that, but I think in the end it was kind of a madhouse just trying to put everything together, and we just didn't get everybody we wanted to get on there. And I don't know what the limit, whether 4, 5, 6 different Sawyer channels, would be good. We'll have to do that. So, well, it's only 9:12. Yeah, you got plenty of time. We could do a panel swapping bear stories. Mike, we could actually, and I'm working on Jason. He's been really busy lately. So, and if you guys don't know, Mike is in Southern Oregon, actually down not too far from where I was born. And then of course I'm up in Washington, and Jason Hamlow, Northwest Sawyer, is in the middle. And we're going to try to get together with Jason. I've met with him. Great guy, actually. You may watch his channel already, Northwest Sawyer. But we're going to try to get together with him and maybe just do a BS session. I think that could be a lot of fun. So if you want to see that kind of stuff, be sure to let me know that too. Paul spoke to Rick. We don't sell. So, oh, gotcha. Okay. I knew there was something, and that's what I was going to ask you, is if you guys sold. And so if you're not, if you don't sell your lumber like that, then that makes sense. That probably wasn't the panel for you. But we will get you on another one. It was a lot of fun last time. If you guys haven't seen Andy and Paul's channel, check it out. It's great. But you mentioned spalted maple. Let us know how he got the spalting. Keep it wet or bury it. Neither. So, I mean, the spalting comes from my understanding anyway, and I'm no expert, but my understanding is it's kind of like blue stain in pine. It's like a mold that happens as the log starts to rot. And so they had this huge maple in their yard that was probably put in like the 40s or 50s, probably 50s, early 50s. And so it had to come down. And then after it came down, it sat for a year before I hit it with the chainsaw. And so if you saw the video of me quartering up a log, and that's all I did was quarter the log. It was the last one of the log quartering ones. I did a couple, but this was the last one. That's the log. And there was quite a bit of spalting in it. We got a little bit of water on it to show you. Well, this time we got a lot more water on it, I think. We'll show you what it looks like. And I think you'll find it interesting. But yeah, my understanding is it's just mold basically. So that was fun. What else we got, guys? And bear stories, Mike. I want to know. I guess I've never thought of Southern Oregon. It's not that it's not bear country, because I mean, sure it is. I've got bears up in my cabin. It's all arid pine forest up there too. But I mean, when I say I grew up in bear country, I mean like Vanderhoof, grizzly, and black. But like Ocean Falls, more bears than you could imagine. I mean, I have to tell you, I lived in a town called Port Alice, British Columbia. After I got out of the Marine Corps, I worked in construction a while, and then I went to work in a pulp mill up in Port Alice. And I was there for almost 3 years, I think, or maybe it was 2.5, 3 years. And it was another town like Ocean Falls, bears everywhere. And I was out walking with my wife and kids, walking down the road, and a big old mama bear just comes walking down the hillside in front of us with 2 cubs. And, so she walks out onto the road, and we kind of look at her and go, "Hey, hi, Mom, we'll wait right here." And she just walked across the road and down to the ocean below. And then we continued on our path, and that's kind of life in bear country. We occasionally get black bear on the back deck. Yeah, well, you're up in the Adirondacks. I could see that. And I know Mike has got a bunch of forest down there. I know there are bears out there. In fact, in the Siskiyous, south of where Mike is, I remember a story of a guy who was out deer hunting and got attacked by a black bear, and he was carrying a 45 ACP, and it wasn't working for him. And a friend of his shot the bear with a 44 Magnum. And it's always been one of those stories that I'd heard about that always rings home. Because if you don't know, I carry a 45 all the time, always. But if I'm out hunting in bear country, I carry my 45 long Colt. Now that might seem a little strange to some, but I'm carrying a Ruger Vaquero, original Ruger Vaquero, which is on the 44 Magnum frame, and I load my own, and I'm running 360 grain hard cast bullets at 1,100 feet per second. So it's not your average 45 Colt, but the 45 ACP is not really a good round for bears. It's typically soft, slow, and big, and slow and big is great for certain critters, but for a bear, you want penetration, and so you need something hard and fast. And the 9mm is not a good choice. 45 is not a good choice. 357, 41 Magnum, 44 Magnum, those are much better choices. And that story down there in the Siskiyous always reminded me of that. And so it's kind of funny, because if you've ever watched my videos up at the cabin, you probably noticed there's usually a 45 on my hip. You may not have realized that's a 45, but you've probably seen it a lot. Or if you hadn't, go back and watch some. You'll probably see it. If you see me up at the cabin, if I'm in the woods in remote locations, folks, you never know when you're going to run into something that's rabid. You're never going to you surprise something. I grew up in the woods. You don't have to shoot the animals, by the way. Usually, you just got to put around in a tree or the ground nearby, and it chases them off. But it's just handy to have, right? Works better than bear spray. But Andy Cobb Brothers Logging, awesome. Georgia, hot. I spent several months down in Georgia come on, Eric, was it Fort Gordon? Must have been Fort Gordon. I did. So those that don't know, I was almost 5.5 years in the Marine Corps. Then I was out for 5, and then I was in for 3 in the Army for communications training. That's where I got my communications training, was down in Fort Gordon, Georgia. So, but welcome. Hi, thanks for joining us. Mike, no grizzlies. Well, yeah, no grizzlies, but a lot of black bear. Yeah, and your place on the coast, especially. Yes, I would agree. If you're out on the coast, and for those that don't realize, this is a Sawmill channel, but these lives, I just let them go. We just talk about whatever we want to. So if you have sawmilling questions, I will always try to answer those for you. But if you want to talk bears, I grew up in bear country. I love talking about bears and guns and, being in the woods and cabins and whatever else. Jeeps. Bourbon, right? So, so Andy, I don't think I've seen your name before. So, and if I haven't, or if I have and I've forgotten, I apologize. I'm bad with names. So welcome. Appreciate, glad to have you here. Got any questions? Don't be shy, ask them. If you got a YouTube channel, drop a link down below. Let us know what it is. That's something else I haven't mentioned before. So guys, if you got a channel out there, you want to drop a link to it, feel free to do that. And a lot of you do. So Mike does, of course, Craig does, John does, Andy, you guys do. So, no worries, we can do that. And on these multiple format forums, I think we're going to have some fun with those. And we just I think that the key with that is share that software around. I mean, Rick has sent it to me. I need to make sure everybody knows what it is. And that way you can host one if you want yourself. I'm happy to host them myself, of course. I talk so damn much, so maybe I can do it. But I think they're fun. I think it's a great chance to kind of do that collaboration style, multi-channel, multi-Sawyer. It would be fun to do it with a login channel, why not? And so if you haven't seen those, check out Rick's channel over at Two Brothers Outdoors. We've done a couple over there, and we're going to do some more. So I plan on doing it. And I mentioned earlier today, maybe every month, every other month, we can all do it. And so maybe one time Mike will do it, and John will do it, and I'll do it, and Rick will do it, and it'd be fun. I think it's a good time. it gives an opportunity for you, the viewers, to see us all together and ask questions and have us all answer or fight over it or talk about bourbon and bears. So, all right, where are we at here? We got plenty of time. So if you got some questions, throw them out there. Let's have at them. How many of you have seen my latest video? Does YouTube let you host a multi-channel live? Yes. So YouTube does, but YouTube software doesn't. YouTube software, they did release a join me type thing where you could have one other YouTube channel join you on a live, but the software that Rick and Tim are using is more of a webcasts type software that YouTube also allows you to use, and it allows you to give a link to anybody that you want to allow to join. The key with doing a multicast type live like that, where there are multi channels, is the channel hosting is responsible. So if something goes wrong, somebody says something they shouldn't be saying or whatever, the channel hosting, of course, is a responsible channel. But I don't envision that happening, frankly, because my viewers and the channels I watch aren't like that. So I don't think we have to worry about it. Oh, Join Me is only one. Yes, Join Me is only one. You have to have software to do 4 or 5 or 6. And I believe the software that Rick and Tim use, it's a free version, but there's a paid for version that allows you to do way more. I just don't see a reason for it, right? If you could do, I think they can do up to 10, which I think could be too many. I think 4, 5, 6, probably the max. I think we did 5 last time. And I think that worked out really well. There were 6 of us because it's Tim and Rick. And when we did it with Andy and Paul, of course, Andy and Paul, Tim and Rick, and myself, and I don't remember if someone else was there, but it's a lot of fun, right? And you get to ask questions and get different perspectives. So I think that's kind of a fun approach. And I do like the idea of a bull session. And I think that if Mike and I arrange it, we're going to have to sit around a campfire with Jason and it just tell bear stories. They were this big. All right, what questions have we got? We got plenty of time, so fire away. Let me know what you want to know. Sky's the limit. We've got plenty of time. Yes, for those I mentioned it earlier. If you're late coming in and you didn't notice it, I did not buy a second Sawmill. That was Kevin's, and you will get to see it. And there's some others around here. Jason and I have talked about doing something. We don't know what yet. I think one of the challenges with Sawmill channels doing collaborations, and I think collaborations are a lot of fun, and I think viewers tend to like them. But the problem is we're all too busy out trying to make logs into lumber ourselves, right? So that can be a challenge. 2 bear stories ready to go. Hey, right on. We'll have to do it. It'll be fun. I've got probably 30 or 40, so it's just I've got cougar stories, I've got wolf stories. I mean, I lived in places, guys. If you look up Ocean Falls, if you get on Google, you Google Ocean Falls, British Columbia, you'll notice that it is in the absolute middle of nowhere. Like, you hear people talking about they lived in the middle of nowhere. No, they didn't. They lived in like metropolitan America or something. No, when I say I lived in the middle of nowhere, you couldn't get more remote if you moved to Alaska. I'm telling you right now, you're not, if you ever watch like Homestead Rescue, Rainy Ranch or something like that, I mean, there's a highway going right by their place. No. Ocean Falls, you either take a boat to get there or you fly. It had 1 mile of paved road. The rest of the roads, get this, were wood plank roads. Yes, roads made of wood plank on the side of a mountain. And there was some dirt too, but you literally, I mean, you lived in a place where you bought your groceries via, the mail, or I guess you might have, maybe mom could telephone them in, and they would bring them in on a ship called the Northland Prince. And so you could buy like, a month or two's worth of groceries from like a big store in Vancouver or something like that. And then it would ship those groceries on that big ship to you, which took time to get to where you were. And of course, then you could receive them and have them. Now, there was a co-op store there, like a department store, but that was more for like what you needed to get spur of the moment. I got to run out of the store and get some eggs. Although running down to the store meant going down the hill on foot because you didn't drive. I mean, why would you drive? There was only 1 mile of paved road, and then walking back up that hill. If you look up Ocean Falls, you probably will see a picture of Fifth Street where kids are tobogganing down the road. I mean, we're talking ski hill type steepness on the road there. Yeah, we had to walk up and down that to get groceries. Andy Cobb, yes, I'm in Louisville, 40 miles south of Augusta, and logged on the fort numerous times. Oh, right on, 57. Been logging and milling many years. Right on, Andy. Well, we're the same age then, so well met, buddy. Nice to have you. If you have a channel, let us know. And oh wait, Fisherman 506 Lee, do you use 1 1/4 or 1.5 inch wide bands? So Lee, yes. I started on 1 1/4 bands. I am transferring everything over to 1.5 inch. So when I'm done, I will have no 1 1/4 bands. In my opinion, it's just my opinion, but if you've got an LT40 or above, there's no reason to run 1 1/4 bands. There are no benefits to running them. There's no advantage to running them. I know of no good reason to run 1 1/4s. I didn't know that. So when I bought my mill, I bought 1 1/4s, and I've got lots of 1 1/4 bands still. But I use Wood Miser Resharp, and they've got a note on my account that says any bands you replace them with 7-degree 1.5s. Unless they're 4s, then replace them with 4-degree 1.5s, and or bimetal 10s, then go to bimetal 10s in 1.5. And that's it. So 1.5s all the way. And when I have all my bands changed over to 1.5, then I'll change out my guide wheels to the high performance bigger guide wheels, because it's my understanding that those do give you some additional benefit once you move to 1.5. You can't run 1 1/4 bands when you're running the 1.5 guide wheels, but you can run 1.5 bands when you run 1 1/4s. So for LT40 and above, I'm a firm believer. I swear by 1.5s, but I don't run the thicker ones. I just run the standard, what are they, 045s. And I like 7s a lot, but I also run 4s. So 7s is kind of my go-to band. 4s for harder woods and wider cuts. I like them a lot. So let's see what else. Oh, channel and named as such. Okay, so Andy Cobb Brothers Logging. We'll check it out, buddy. Timothy Christian, do you ever figure out what the hiccup with the sawmill was? Which hiccup? I've had a few, buddy. So was it the hydraulic hiccup, or is it the hiccup that I mentioned in my last video? So you have to get more specific. My mill's had a few hiccups, which, by the way, isn't unusual. And while I'm waiting for you to let me know, Kevin, who was out here 2,133 hours on his mill, like a lot of sawyers, carries a bunch of spares, because anytime you push a mill the way we do, you're going to break it. Things are going to, eventually stop working. You're going to have to fix something. It's just the nature of the beast. So it is what it is, in my opinion, in this world. It's like running a chainsaw, right? If you abuse the hell out of that saw, sooner or later, you're going to have to do something with it. So, the last video. So no, I gave a little update in the beginning. I'll redo it now for those that have just joined us. So, in the last video, I mentioned something's going on with the mill. There's yet another video to come out. That should be out. Well, it will be out next Saturday morning. It'll come out. That one will explain a little bit more. It is not fixed. I think I know what the issue is. However, I have a bad back, and it got really bad. And so basically, when we got home, I parked the mill, and I couldn't really even walk down there to work on it, much less actually try to resolve the issue. So what I mentioned earlier is I believe it is just either plugged air filters. I did try to blow them out, both the inner and the outer, but they did have some sawdust in them, and that happens. They build up. It's running rich. way too rich. So my guess is it's not getting enough air. So I'm going to do a complete service on it, run some seafoam through it, get that thing cleaned out. I'm also going to check the exhaust system. One of the things that Kevin mentioned to me is sometimes those, if your muffler gets plugged up, you get some mud daubers or something in there, it can actually choke it, and so you end up running too rich. So those are the kind of things that I'll be checking, and I will let you know when I get it fixed. I just have not had a chance to get down there and work on it yet. So thanks for asking. It's coming. We will get it fixed. I guarantee you that. Just a matter of time. If the hydraulics was any issue, any indicator, I will fix it. It might take 4 different things to get there, but damn it, I will fix it because I will get back to milling here soon. So, but what other questions we got? So we got and Andy and Lee. Lee, hopefully I answered that question for you. Timothy, love seeing you guys. I haven't seen comments by you before, so awesome. Welcome to the channel. Glad you're here. For those that are new, I do these lives. It's just a BS session, basically. I like to give some updates on the channel. The rest is sky's the limit. Ask the questions. I'll answer them. Doesn't matter what it is. Don't care. You can ask me about my bear stories. You can ask me about Jeeps, YouTube, videos, sawmills, you name it, whatever. I answer them all. I did already answer my bourbon question tonight, though. So, And if you haven't checked out the merch down below, believe it or not, it really does help the channel. I think I make like $1.50 if you buy a glass. So check them out. They're pretty cool. And if you're a bourbon drinker, oh yeah, that's the kind of glass I like. I need to get a short ball though. Try to do that, or high ball, or whatever the hell they call them, the smaller ones. They don't have those on there yet. So, but in my next video, I will be showing some of the camp mugs. I've come to really like those, especially out on a job site, because they're like tin. They are awesome, and I didn't realize how much they held. They look really small, so I thought, man, those are too small. And then we filled them up for the end of the day when I'm beat up, sitting on a camp chair after milling all day and having a drink in my old Jarhead camp mugs. They held a lot. Let's just put it that way. It was good. So, all right. What other questions you got? Happy to answer any more you got. We'll give you a few more minutes here and get some more questions in. And by the way, guys, if you don't know, I've gone 2 hours before, so I'm not worried about time constraints. So we're at an hour, but if we need to go another 15, 20, 30, whatever, I'm happy to do that. So toss your questions out. Let me know. I try to keep an eye on the chat down below. I may have missed the video. Did you log those logs yourself at the cabin in your last videos? You might have seen the video, but you didn't see the logging really part. So yes, we did. There is a video. It came out 3 videos ago. So if you go back 3 videos earlier. So this one I think came out on a Tuesday. And I'm trying to think of the title on that video. I can't remember it. It's not the grapple one, but the one before that. Building a log deck. It was something about building a log deck. If you watch that video, you will notice a friend of mine with hooks up a tree with a saw dangling down below him. So we did fall those. Now, because of my back, I was trying not to do as much saw work. And when I'm falling logs that are close to the cabin like that, I do it with somebody else. I always work with somebody because it's just too close to risk it. So my buddy Steve came out, and Steve's a great guy, used to work for me, super nice guy, and loves to put the hooks on and climb up trees and fall trees and all that kind of stuff. And so Steve came out, and he ran the saw for most of the falling and bucking. And then I ran the tractor. And so a lot of times what we'll do when you've got, trees that are too close to structures and you want to absolutely make sure they go where you want them to, because anybody that's ever fallen a lot of trees, and I see Andy Cobb here. Andy, I'm sure could comment on this. It's not a bad idea to throw a block and tackle downwind to where you want that tree to go, and then hook up a rope, up the tree 40 feet or whatever you can get it, and then attach it to something like a tractor or whatever on a 90-degree angle from the direction of fall, and just put a little tension. It doesn't really need much at all, just a little bit. That way, if for some reason that tree decides it wants to go in a direction that you don't anticipate, you can encourage it to go in the right direction. It's always worked for us. I've done it several times, many times, on those sketchy situations where you've got a tree that's just not, it's in a spot that if it goes the wrong way, bad things are going to happen. And bad things happen when trees goes the wrong way, even if there's no structures around. Ask me how I know that with my $1,200 saw that's still in pieces in my shop right now. But it can happen. So anyway, Steve fell. He felled 7 or 5 of the 7 that we felled. I did 2. And honestly, the 2 that I did worked out great, fell right where I wanted them to. It was really awesome having Steve there, because he and I work well together, and he was pounding wedges for me, which is kind of an odd thing. A lot of guys don't have someone else do that, but Steve and I worked well enough together that, I got no problem with that. And we dropped him in right where we wanted him. The only problem was I had to put the saw down after starting to buck limbs for not even 5 minutes. I couldn't do it. Couldn't walk. And so I had to hobble away and get on the tractor and use the grapple to start hauling brush and whatnot. So yes, we did do that. We dropped 7. 2 of those were a fungus killed Doug firs, big trees about close to 24 inches in diameter. I'm actually going to split those into firewood. They were already checking pretty badly. They'd been up for about 2 years at least, and I knew they needed to come down. So we finally got them down. We'll buck them into firewood. I'll have firewood there for years. And then the ponderosa pines, 5 of those are the 18 logs that are decked up in the log deck that I built there. So we did do all of that. And honestly, that grapple, I can't tell you enough how awesome that grapple was. It's not a heavy duty machine, but boy, I'll tell you, I know Andy commented on wanting to have one of those. Man, I'll tell you, you get a grapple, even a lighter duty one like this one, it's awesome. Cleaning up brush after fallen trees, never been so good. It's awesome. It just run that rake along the ground and then grab all that slash and pick it up, take it over and drop it into the fire pit. Can't beat it. It's awesome. So there you go. What else you got? Let's see what else you got out there, guys. So we got Andy the Faller. We got Timothy. Tim, do you run is it Timothy or Tim? And do you run a Sawmill? We got Fisherman 506. Lee, you must run a Sawmill because you're asking about bands. I'm assuming LT40. If you're running an LT35, Wood Miser says you could put 1.5-inch bands on, but they'd be harder to get on and off, and so it would reduce your actual production in the end. So just something to know. I did see the grapple video. I was experiencing grapple envy. Trust me, dude. Awesome. Yeah, you know what? I was being honest in that video. There, if you've ever been to Everything Attachments, I didn't mention them in the video specifically. I think it was Andy that caught on right away who I was talking about. So good catch, Andy, because you're right. But Everything Attachments, it's an awesome online store. They've got great videos, all kinds of awesome stuff. They're back east somewhere. I think they might be in Georgia, or maybe North Carolina. But they've got these grapples. I can't remember the name right now off the top of my head, but they are monsters. Some of them weigh like 900 pounds. They're awesome monsters. And I really kind of wanted one of those, but I stumbled across this LS grapple and I got it for $2,000. And honestly, Buck, I bought my tractor from Buck. I bought other implements for him. I believe that's why I got it for $2,000 when he listed it at 2,600. I think that's just the way Buck is. It had nothing to do with YouTube or anything else. It was just the way Buck is, right? I've spent a lot of money there. He's a good guy. And EFC Equipment, by the way, if you're in Washington State, Buck over at EFC, he will take care of you. He's a good guy. But that's a lighter duty grapple, and I bent those tines up several times. I've bent it up, but I beat it back and away you go. And my dad keeps telling me Get an oxyacetylene torch and heat it up when you bend them back, and then weld some more stuff on there, weld some more metal on it. But you can't beat it. Now, we've got Okanagan topsoil here. That means moon dust and rock. So you're going to hit rocks and bend those tines. It's just the way it is out there. But boy, I'll tell you, when you start dropping big trees, all that branches, being able to just grapple them up, you can't beat it. REI, awesome, buddy. Hey, nice to see you. Oh, the Wicked. Yes, that's what it is. Either and or waiting on an LT40 wide that I ordered in January 2022. Okay. So, Tim or Timothy is your either or. Gotcha, buddy. All right, right on. LT40 wide. Hey, I'll tell you, by the way, LT40 versus LT40 wide, I always had reservations on the LT40 wide, and only because with inch and a quarter bands, running 10-degree bands on wide cuts, I've seen it rise. And I really didn't like that. You're running a 27-inch wide cut, and it's rising a 16th of an inch in the center of the cut, and you're cranking down as tight as you can. Really didn't like that. And I thought, I don't know how that wide's going to do. This weekend, I got to see the wide in action, and I'm telling you what, it runs just like the standard. Awesome. But I'll tell you, when we got a gnarly sycamore up on that mill, that extra 6 inches of cut width, huge difference, massive difference. I was really impressed with how well that had gone. Now, the wide was not available when I bought my LT40, right? There was no wide option. It came out the next year. And so today, if I was going to do it all again, I would buy the wide. No questions, even in the 26 horse. Now, I'd rather have the 38 horse. Experience has taught me more horse is better, right? Just power is better. Pushing through big, heavy dry logs, power is better. Pushing through big, heavy wet logs, power is better. But that 26 horse on a wide, it performed really, really well. And I know guys like Kevin who's milled over 1 million board feet with that machine. So kudos to Woodmiser. It really worked out nice. There's only one caveat that Kevin told me about that I found very interesting, and that is that the debarker is so heavy, you have to be careful. He discovered that if that debarker is extended and you're going into a big, heavy, wide log and you don't dial back the throttle hard on it, it can actually cause that it's got a lot of leverage and it can tilt the head a little bit on impact. And so you've got to really slow down and take it easy going into those wide cuts, just because it's so much weight hanging further out. Mine's really close and it spits right at my face. Those are further out and they've got some leverage there that can kind of work that head a little bit. So you just got to be careful with those. So let's see, LT40 arriving in July. What are the top 3 things you wish you knew on day 1? Oh, well, day one, I ran my my guide arm into the log clamp. I think one of the first things that I wish had been impressed upon me on day 1 was that log clamp is about 1 inch thick. So if you're running near the bottom of the deck, make sure that it's only half on the cant. And if it's half on the cant, you ain't going to skim the top of the log clamp. Okay. So pay attention to that log clamp. When you're getting down low, if you put it about half on the cant, it'll hold just fine. And you're not going to run into it. You will hit metal. Be prepared. You're going to hit metal. There's so much going on that I don't know too many sawyers. Frankly, I don't know any that didn't at one point or another run into metal. Try to cut a side support, try to cut the log clamp. You're going to do it. So be prepared for that. There's just a lot going on, but you will get it and you're not going to hurt the mill. These mills are tough. So that's number 1. Log clamp halfway down on the bottom when you're getting near the bottom. Number 2, 1/8 of an inch. So when you run simple set, now if you're running, I haven't run AccuSet 2, so I'm not sure about it. But simple set is designed so that you add the kerf to what you're trying to mill. So if you want to mill 2 inch thick lumber, you set your simple set at 2 1/8 of an inch. Okay. If you want to run an inch and 7/8, you set it at 2 inches, and so on. Well, one of the things that no one ever told me, I never thought about, it didn't come easy to me, and maybe I'm just not a mathematical genius or something. I'm not. But if you're trying to cut, say you're trying to cut 1-inch stuff, or let me rephrase that. Say you're cutting on 1 inch. So I call that on the evens. You're cutting ones, twos, whatever, right? So you set your simple set at 1 inch, or you set it at 2 inches. And why would you do that? Well, maybe you want full dimension stuff, but it doesn't have to be exactly 2 inches thick. It could be an inch and 7/8. And so you think, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to set my simple set at 2 inches, right? Now I'll get inch and 7/8, and it'll be easy math, right? 12 inches divided by 6, easy peasy, right? 2. So I can go 12 inches high and then go 2, 2, 2, 2, 2 all the way to the deck. Well, guess what? You'll get 2 1/8 of an inch at the bottom of the deck. And that is that 1/8 inch I'm talking about. So if you want to do that, you cut on the evens or any other time, you always have to remember that the last board, you want to start based on where that last board is going to be. So if I'm going to cut 12 inches to the deck at 1 inch increments, I actually want to start at 11 and 7/8. That's that 1/8 of an inch. And the reason is, if I go 11 and 7/8, 10, 9 and 7/8, 5 and 7/8, 4 and 7/8, 1 and 7/8, I drop an inch, I'm at 7/8 of an inch. Every single board will be the exact same thickness, top to bottom, and I won't have a thick board on the bottom. And I've noticed a lot of people on Facebook ask about that. They don't understand. How come I always get a 1-inch board or whatever on the bottom? Well, it's because you're not starting your cant height at the right height to leave you exactly the same dimension board at the bottom. Now, you can do that with your quarter scale. The only problem with that is that if you're going to do what I do, which is go mill for other people all the time, other people might want inch and 5/8 boards, or they might want inch and 3/16 or inch and 7/16, right? The customers have different ideas about what they want. And my philosophy has always been, I'm going to give my customers what they want because it's going to make them happy. Now, I will advise them on what I think, right? So if a customer says, I want dimensional, 1.5 inches by 3.5 inches, I'm going to say, well, if that's what you want, you can't mill to that. You have to mill over, because spruce pine fir, right, SPF, that most people use for dimensional lumber, is going to shrink approximately 1/16 of an inch on a 2x4, okay, or 2x6. So you need to be at least a 1/16 of an inch over, and I always recommend an 1/8. So if a customer wants dimensional, I'm going to mill 1 5/8 by 3 5/8. Now, that means I have to set the mill at 1 3/4 by 3 3/4, so that you take that 1/8 of an inch curve out and you leave 1 5/8 by 3 5/8. When you set your cant height, you can't use your quarter scale for that. So if you watch my videos, I don't use my quarter scale. I pretty much never, ever use my quarter scale. It's a nice thing on the mill. I don't use it. I use the inch scale all the time. But what I do is I figure out what my cant height needs to be, and I write it in Sharpie on my simple set cover. I'll write like 9 3/8, 11 1/8, or whatever, and I'll write like 5 or 6 or 7 cant heights and 2 or 3 widths, so that if I'm doing like 50 logs and they're all 10 to 18 inches in diameter, I'll have options in terms of what my heights should be. So if I start at 9 3/8, then my last board is going to be 1 5/8 inches thick. And one way of thinking of that, if that seems confusing, is to go from the bottom up for a minute, right? Use an Excel spreadsheet or a piece of paper and go 1 5/8 is my last board. How do I get my mill to cut the last board at 1 5/8? So if I go up another 1 5/8 board plus a kerf, that's 1 3/4 of an inch. I now have 1 3/4 and 1 5/8. And you add those together, and now you know what your starting height is if it's just 2. And then 1 3/4 and 1 3/4 and 1 3/4, and you're done. So that last board, though, that's just 1 5/8. So I hope that makes sense. It's that 1/8 of an inch. Take that off. So that's number 2, right? So log clamp halfway down when you're on the bottom, you ain't going to skim it. It'll hold just fine. 2, 1/8 of an inch. Remember that last board, if you don't plan ahead from the start, that last board is going to be too thick. So You have to make sure that you adjust for that difference, that one kerf that you're not going to need. Okay. Number 3, bands, and bands. Probably. I think everybody starts out with like 10 or 15 bands. That's great if you're going to be a hobby sawyer and you're just going to like mill up 2 or 3 logs. But if I were to buy a new mill today, I would start with no less than 30 bands. And that's a bare minimum. I've got about 85, something like that, right? Like 30, I'd be in a panic. If I only have 30 bands, I'm sweating bullets. I'm thinking, oh my God, what am I going to do? I've only got 30 bands. So when you buy your mill, I mean, you need cant hooks. And so if you don't know this, and I'll drop this down here for you guys, Handy horsepower is like sex. Can't never have enough and always want more. Amen, brother. So if you don't know this, go back in my channel. Go back and look at my channel. It might be under the maintenance and things section, or I have a playlist, how to build your business. Go back and look. There's a what I bring video. It's not the greatest video in the world. I'm not going to tell you it's going to win any awards, but I show you everything I bring with me on a sawmill job. Now, if you don't travel, you're still going to need everything I have there. So look for those things. A snap-on high pressure air nozzle. If you don't have a high pressure air nozzle, snap-on makes a great one. I would recommend that highly. It's really, really good for blowing the water out of lube, the lube lines in the wintertime. It's really good for cleaning everything up, blowing sap out of the B57 belts, which, by the way, if you're getting a mill, 30 bands is the minimum. Get an extra set of B57 belts as well. You don't bring your mill home and because you know what, I'm telling you right now, in that first period of time, you're gonna smoke a B57 belt accidentally, and you're dead in the water until you get another one. So get 2 more. Just figure you need 2 more B57s, no questions asked. Craig, Kilted Sawyer's here. John from Davidson's All Natural Gym. Andy's here from, Andy and Paul from Southern Adirondack Outdoors. Trust me, guys. Oh, look at that. What I bring. Oh, well, great video. Thanks, buddy. So John just mentioned it in the comments down below, the what I bring video. But yeah, get B57s. Get them on hand. You're going to need, you're going to need to check that video out. Lots of tools in there you need. Wood-Mizer is your friend. Wood-Mizer has the best support anybody out there. So you're going to want to know who the maintenance guy is, because you're going to need him. You're going to talk to him. You're going to have a wire come loose, and your alternator is going to let your battery die because it's not charging. It happens. Those kind of things happen. So you're going to want to have somebody that, in your ear at Wood-Mizer. It really helps. You can ask me too. I'll help you out best I can. But it's just part of the business. You're going to need to tighten your drive belt after 20 hours. So you brand new mill, life is good. You're rocking, you're rolling, you're knocking down some lumber, and all of a sudden you're cutting waves all over the place. And you're like, oh my God, I'm surfing these boards. What the heck? 20 hours on the mill? Just mark it on the mill. In 20 hours, I need to tighten my drive belt. Then you can get away with like 100 hours. But that's number one. And you see guys ask all the time on Facebook, I'm cutting waves. What should I look for? And I'm stunned at how many times guys will say, how's the set on your band? Oh, please. If you're cutting waves, band comes off like now. Don't mess around. Pull the damn band off. Put a new one on. If you're still cutting waves, drive belt tension. That is by far the number one reason a bandsaw mill cuts waves, especially in softwoods, but in any wood. I mill mostly softwood, so that's why that comment. I mill better than probably 95% softwoods. But I'll tell you, the drive belt tension, numero uno. Your band tension, 3,000 pounds. They say 2,800 to 3,000 pounds, 3,000 pounds. Get used to it. Having an extra idler band wheel bearing is not a bad idea, but you're not going to need one for somewhere between 400 and 800 hours. So you could get away without having one of those for a while. Cant hooks, you can't have enough. Log right makes the best. That's just life. So they don't sponsor me. They did let me give one away once, and I apologize. Usually, if someone texts me during my show, it's because they're trying to ask something and they can't, but that's not what it is. So I'll check it sometimes. But all right, W2. Hey, nice to see you, buddy. Make sure you try out the different degree blades as well, especially if you're cutting frozen or dry wood. I just asked Wood Miser and a few experienced guys which ones to use. Yes, I have nines, tens, sevens, 739s, 747s, and fours. um, you got to try them out. I also have bimetals. So my go-to bands are bimetal 10 degrees. Those will cut nails. They're amazing. They're also really good for great big knots on ponderosa pine. It was one of my viewers that suggested I tried that. He hadn't done it himself. He was curious. He was right. Bimetals cut big knots just like they cut nails. I mean, they do it. But I don't run tens otherwise. I don't. Tens to me are like the utility grade band that you can have. I know a lot of guys run them. They think they're great. I'm sorry. I don't get it. I run sevens and fours. 747s are awesome, but they move so much sawdust. I just eat more sawdust. So I'm not sure that's a benefit or not. But I really like sevens. I know Kevin, who was here this weekend milling for me because of my back. He was running sevens all weekend on Sycamore. And no, he was running fours, sorry, but he was thinking he wished he'd brought some sevens. Turbo sevens or 739s, they are faster, but you got to have a little more power to push them. So a 26 horse will push turbo sevens, but I mean, a 38 horse would push them a lot faster. So I'm a big fan of sevens, 739, 747, doesn't matter. 7-degree profiles, those are awesome. 4 degrees are awesome. Joe Main is probably still with us. If he's not, Joe Main over at, and Joe, Joe's, the business Joe works for in my mind is Joe Main. It's like ITCS or something like that. But Joe Main is here. Joe Main is the band guy. And I mean, he knows bands, he sells bands, he sells Wood Miser bands. They make their own bands, the best out there in the business. He does not sponsor me, just so you know. He did give me some bands once, but he doesn't sponsor me. But I just happen to know. I know a lot of guys that use Joe. He's awesome. All right. So what else we got here? What a great answer. Thank you. I really appreciate your perspective. Yep, I appreciate it. I'll keep posting on my progress. Yes, I am absolutely interested. Lots of Doug fir on the deck waiting in the Pacific Northwest. Awesome. Where in the Pacific Northwest? Because that's where I am. I'm just in the dry part of the Pacific Northwest. And I bet you guys out there in Georgia and upstate New York didn't know it's dry out here. I live in the desert, right? Washington State, the Everbrown State. Yeah, there you go. Joe's right there. So yeah, talk to Joe. Joe's a good guy, and he will set you straight when it comes to bands. On the wet side, hopefully not Seattle, because that would, I hate cities. I'm sorry, but hopefully, maybe all the way over on the coast or up in the Bellingham Blaine area or something. But right on. Well, one of the things I try to do is get around and see people once in a while, and I've talked about doing a get together before. I still think I need to do that. I just haven't decided how. Though my wife keeps telling me I need to hold the get together at our cabin, and get people to run my mill and fall trees for me. All right, well, folks, it's getting late. What do we want? What is Joe's link? You know what? I will, Joe, you could drop it here. Honestly, tell you the truth, Joe usually does better if you just email him, or not email him, text him. But I will get Joe's link. I have it in a video or two that I've done. Oh gosh, it's been a few months. You know what? I'm going to do that right now. So Joe, either drop it yourself or I'm going to go ahead and pull one up for you guys. So bear with me. And I'm doing this for a reason, guys. As I said, Joe doesn't sponsor me. But the reason I'm doing this is he is really a good guy. And he is very, very well known in the sawmilling world, particularly the Wood Miser sawmilling world, for bands. They do weld some of their own bands. I know Jake Dean says they're the best bands out there. So, but Joe also does Wood Miser stuff, and he will take care of you. And last, last time I talked to Joe, he was still doing free shipping to the 48, continental U.S. states. So you can't beat that, right? You order a set of bands, you get them in like 2 days. But gosh, Joe, where did I put that link, buddy? I'm gonna have to find that, and I want to do that before I sign off tonight. Joe says he's still here, but let me find Mr. Joe Main. He's also on Facebook, so you can find him there. But I'm gonna find this video because I know I did it in the series. If you've seen the playlist, the old homestead playlist, it was in there. So let me look here. Let's see. No, not there. Let's see. Where are you at, Joe? I hope I didn't change it and drop it off of one of these videos because I know it was on there. Hang there. Bear with me, guys. I'm looking this up. I'm gonna find it. Joe's. It's late back in Joe's world. He hasn't responded yet. Let's see. Could be in this one here. All right. I'm gonna get it for you. Hang on. I will get it for you in 1 second. So if you guys are wondering what I'm doing, I'm looking up Joe Main's number for you guys. Oops. Joe Main. Here he is, right here. Okay, Joe, where are we at here? Works for work. Yeah, you're not putting it in your work section on Facebook, Joe. Come on. He still hasn't answered. I'm getting it for you, guys. Hang on. Oh, Joe. Joe Main. I was there and then I kind of lost it here. Unfortunately, that's something that happens when you post as much as we do. And Joe shares a ton of sawmilling videos. And so, unfortunately, sometimes those videos go buried. Oops. That we forget where they are. I'm almost there, guys. Come on. Sponsors. I happen to know that he sponsors a channel on YouTube, which is Out of the Woods. Nathan Elliott over at Out of the Woods. And I thought it would be there, but it's not. Dang it. All right, give me a minute here, guys. Let me find it. I know it's here. Almost there. Maybe by this time Joe will have come in and already commented because I know it's in one of my videos. I just have to scroll through something here and then I'll find it for you. I don't think it's in my spiders and snakes. Come on, Joe. Where are you at? This is what I'm going to do, guys. If I don't find it in the next 2 minutes here, then I will put it in the description below for you, and you can come back and check it. But I should be able to get it for you here in just a second. But if not, I'll get it and I'll put it in the description below so that you can find it there, and then that would make it really easy because I'm having a hard time finding it right now. While I'm looking, if you got any other questions, ask them now, and I'll try to slip in one more as soon as I come back from getting this. Oh, here we go. Industrial cutting tools. I found it. Right on. Okay, hold on. So here's the number. It's coming your way. If you can't find it, check out Nathan. Yeah, so I looked at Nathan's. Actually, I went to there and he didn't have a link there. Joe does have a website. I just dropped the phone number, but let me grab this link for you guys here. So there is a website. The problem is, honestly, it's called Industrial Cutting Tools. You can actually find them on Facebook. I'm going to give you the link here in just a second. And the truth is, I'll be honest with you, Joe, the website isn't that great. And so that phone number that I gave you is the best. Okay. So equipment needed to saw. Okay. Where are we at? The hidden cost in sawing the other. Oh, is that a video on Nathan's channel? I didn't think Joe had a website. If you can't find, okay, so there you go. I dropped it down there for you. You guys should be able to see it now. Industrial Cutting Tools, and that phone number that I dropped, 229-563-1172, that's Joe's. Oh, there he is. Just give me a call. See that, guys, right there. So he'll help you out. All right, last question. What do we got? Last question, and then I better go. I think my wife made dinner, and she's probably already eaten, and but that's all right. So I'll give you one more question. Any question you got? Other than not my, what's my favorite bourbon? Because I've already answered that one. Old Forester Statesman. Good stuff. If you haven't tried Old Forester, that's good stuff. And if you're, come on, you run a sawmill, you log. If you drink bourbon and you're not drinking Old Forester, come on. It's good, but the name is even better. All right, what else we got? Last chance before I sign off. What questions do you got? How did you like being in the Navy? I have to tell you. So the Marines are not in the Navy. Navy is like Uber for the Marines, okay? Come on, let's be honest. However, I will tell you something. I spent several months aboard the USS Pensacola. I did a little 3-month Caribbean tour, and then I did a 6-month med cruise on the Pensacola. And we had the Fairfax, we had the Guam, the Charleston was out there with us. There was another one, the Nashville, I think. There's several ships out there. So best advice I ever received. See, I'll answer that one. But and I have to tell you though, those sailors, when they're out at sea, they work really hard. We joke about it all the time amongst each other, but I got to be honest with you. Those guys pull like an 8-hour shift and then like an 8-hour watch shift, and then they get 8 hours to try to like sleep and do the other things you need to do in the day. I was like, what? Who wants to do that? I'd rather hit the beach and go walk up a mountain and, have to work 16 hours a day, 7 days a week. So, what's the best advice you have ever received about sawmilling or just life in general? That's a really tough question to answer. Marines are Navy. That is funny. No, Marines are not Navy. Marines, you know what? Marines act like soldiers, talk like sailors, and slap the shit out of both of them. Oh, I didn't say that. Slap the out of both of them. Anything perspective-wise. The best advice, read and you will succeed. I had an old Vietnam veteran instructor when I was training in the Army. And yes, I said Army. I explained that earlier. I did over 5 years in the Corps first, and then later I was a Marine servant in the Army. But and he said, read and you will succeed. And over the years, I have used that myself many, many times. And it always came back to me, I always realized that if there's one thing you can do that can really help you be successful in something, in some way, it is that very thing. Read and you will succeed. And he was right. Sometimes you just got to sit down and do a little reading. So I know that's probably not what you were looking for, but I really have to think about that question. It's a good one. You got me stumped. And that's, I usually can have an answer for things. But best advice, man, I don't know. That's a tough one. Other than, the read and you succeed. But huh, I don't know. You only live once. You are mortal. When you're young and you're dumb and you think you can live through everything, and then you get to have experiences that teach you that no, everybody does not get to live through everything. But honestly, I can't think of any particular advice that anybody's given me off the top of my head right now that would be profound enough to share, frankly. But your check said U.S. Marine Corps, Department of the Navy. How do you answer that one? You must be in Bellingham, or not Bellingham. Sorry, it's Whidbey Island. That's where it is. It was the Department of the Navy. That's true. Like I said, Uber for Marines. It doesn't bother me anyway, though. It's kind of funny. Some guys get a little upset about that kind of stuff. I don't care. It's fine. I think it's funny. Sailors are funny. I have worked with some pretty awesome sailors, and like I said, out there on the high seas, man, I'll tell you what, those guys work hard. They put in some insane hours. I stood on the railing. I'll tell you this last story, and then I should probably call it a night. But I stood out on a railing one night on the forecastle, and just kind of, it was a spot I like to go be on a lot in the evenings. And this sailor came up, and we were BSing, and he said, I thought about being a Marine. I said, oh, really? And he said, yeah, I thought it would be really cool. I mean, we were over there in Sardinia, and you guys, you hit the beach, and that was really cool. I saw you guys hit the beach. I thought, man, I could do that. That'd be really cool. And then I saw you like march up over the beach and inland, and I thought, yeah, that part might be okay. And then I saw you like walking up this hill, and I was thinking, wow, they're kind of far away. And then you went down the other side of that hill, and then you went up the next hill, and I thought, nah, I think I'll go back to KP duty. Of course, and I'm laughing the whole time going, yeah, I'd rather walk up and down those hills over there. Sorry. You can have your KP duty. All right. Absolutely, REI, you bet. One of the things I will tell you guys, when it comes to comments on my videos, I always, always, always try to answer them. If you ask a question or just make a comment on one of my videos, you will find I will answer it if I see it. It's rare that I don't see them right away, but usually I will absolutely try to do that. And on my lives, I always try to answer every question in the chat session here. So don't be shy, ask questions. I love to answer them. It's a good time. So you were aboard the Wainwright, huh? Out of Charleston, South Carolina. Wow. Okay. When? I was at Camp Lejeune for 5 years. So um, the Wainwright sounds really, really familiar to me. I'm not sure why. I don't remember the designation CG, though. So you might have to remind me what that is. Oh, 88 to 92. Okay. So it was 88 and 89 that I did the med on the Pensacola. We were in I can't remember the carrier group. It was one of the largest carrier groups across the Atlantic in years at that time. Kennedy, maybe? I can't remember. But the Wainwright sounds familiar, and I'll bet you that it was out there when we were out there. If you were 88 to 92, it was 88 when I went to the Caribbean and 88, 89 when I did the med. And then, after that, I flew over to the desert in 90 through 90, into 91. And then I got out of the Corps in 91. So I was in 86 to 91 in the Corps. Oh, guided missile cruiser. Ah, yeah. Well, then I'd almost bet for sure that you were out there with us then when we did the med. Did you do a med cruise in 88, 89? I want to say we left in August of 88 and returned like January of 89. So all military personnel wrote a blank check to the U.S. We can tell any jokes between each branch of service and still have the highest respect for each branch. Yes, John, 100% absolutely agree. I've stood on that line. Um, and thanks for posting that. It is true. We do get to make fun of each other and have fun. But you know what? I've had my ass saved by flyboys and Navy guys and Army guys too, in different situations. So nothing better in the world when you're out there in the desert and you see the fast movers come screaming overhead, and the U.S. Army's Tiger Brigade tanks come and join the fight with you. Ain't nothing better than that, buddy. Let me tell you. Meanwhile, the big guns in the Navy are pounding the beach. Yeah, we all work together really well. So, all right, guys, listen. Awesome night. Thanks for being here. Enjoyed the chat. We'll do it again. Y'all have a great night. The old Jarhead out. Oh, 89.90. I'm leaving. So 89.90. We just missed each other. You did Somalia then, I'm guessing. But you guys have a great night. I got to go. Have a good one.